Hello, everybody. Welcome to
Monday with the Mavens. It's a little chilly where we're at, so we're a little bit more
Winter
bundled
jackets.
up than normal. But
Okay, guys, we're talking all about food today. Food timing, food musts, food types,
food facts,
fasting, and our process.
Yeah, there were some other things that we were going to talk about.
We're going to talk about all
We're going to
sorts
talk about lots of food stuff today, guys.
Oh, so thank you guys so much for joining in. I know a lot of you guys watch this after the fact. If you guys have questions after the fact, always send us a message, put it in the comments, whatever works good for you guys. We get a lot of questions about food. Of course, we're macro mavens, we're nutrition coaches, but like specifically, I think it's easy for us to try to overcomplicate things sometimes. And honestly, like we're going to talk about the basics, like especially
We're going to kiss.
We are.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, silly. I don't like the stupid part.
Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. There's a comma after simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, yes, there is information that we're going to go over about the impact of things like fasting, the impact of things like the order of the food that you eat. And there's definite merit to that. But none of that stuff matters until you get the basics down. And the basics are going to be what gets you so much further along. So maybe we just start with the basics.
Let's start with the basics.
Let's
just chat for a minute about food. Food in general. Food. I was going to say something snarky.
I feel like you're saying food a lot.
Food. I was going to say something snarky, but I won't.
Do it.
No, it's silly. But one thing that we get
curious. Aren't you guys curious? Don't you think she should say it?
In fact, it's out of my mind. I don't even know. Let's keep it simple, right? So let's talk about protein, carbs, and fat. We'll use that as our basis of food because honestly, all food fits into those categories. Not simply just one of those, but sometimes there's like crossover, like an almond is fat and protein. You know what I mean. So let's talk about just some general food facts. So we eat food in order to stay alive. Everybody knows that. But food is also the ignition, if you will, to our body's metabolism. Yeah. It's what we need in order to have energy. Yeah. And what we, I think, have moved away from as a society, as a culture. So I think I'm going to assume that didn't do anything.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't know where I was going.
An ignition.
Yeah,
it's metabolism.
Ignition to our metabolism. So our metabolism is the way we burn fuel. The fuel is the food that we give ourselves, right? That's what I was going to say. As a society, I feel like we've really moved away from the fact that food is fuel. And oftentimes we use food to help us feel better. We use food to help us when we're bored. Often food becomes something other than what it was meant to be, which is
a reward system.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Seriously.
Especially starting at a young age.
Yeah.
Like, I see it all the time, especially in the school system and sports. Not to say that we can't have food that we enjoy and celebrate sometimes and eat delicious food, but when we're constantly using food as a reward system, we're training our brain to feel like we need that when really food is fuel. And I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, but that's exactly it. That's what I was going to say is like we have kind of like distorted what food actually is for our bodies. Yeah. And so instead we treat it differently and we treat it as a reward. We treat it, I mean, we do the same thing with our kids, right? Oh, do X, Y, and Z. And oh, you got good grades, let's go get ice cream or whatever. Yeah. And I'm not saying that that is bad. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I am a mom who has rewarded my children with ice cream more times than I can count. And I think that that's warranted sometimes. I mean, we don't keep a lot of sweets in my house, although my kids are teenagers now, they can kind of buy their own sweets. But when they were little, they just didn't have that on hand. And so like, it would be a treat for them to go get frozen yogurt or ice cream or something. But really going back to the basics, food is fuel, period, point blank.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about our process a little bit later in the live, but just to kind of kick it off the gate, the reason that we say starting with the basics before you get into all these other things is you first need to understand how to fuel your body and your brain. And we've talked a lot about calories in, calories out. Like, yes, there is definite merit to calories in, calories out. If you are taking in more calories than you're burning, you are in an excess, you will likely slowly gain. If you are taking in less calories than you are burning, collectively between rest and movement, then you are in a deficit and you will likely slowly lose. However, we all have the ability to impact our base metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories you burn at rest. We have the ability to impact our metabolism. So that's what we love doing with clients. And there's so many ways to do that. But the simplest way is to consistently fuel your body and your brain to get all 3 macronutrients in a ratio, that's protein, carbs, and fats, in a ratio that fits for what you need for your lifestyle, for your bioindividuality. And then to also understand what foods can fuel you or what foods can move you closer to disease. And we've done a whole live on inflammation, but it really comes down to eating balanced whole foods in a ratio that works for you, that moves you towards your goal. And if you're not wanting to maintain, you need to shift that assignment over time. And so we're going to talk about that after we talk about some of these other things that we've gotten questions on in terms of how we do that. How do we work with clients to be able to stimulate your metabolism so that your base metabolic rate, you're burning more calories at rest, and that you can have a higher caloric intake with a leaner body mass, with more flexibility, like we're working towards a flexible metabolism. And it is 100% doable for anybody. It really is.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to talk about our process, but we get a lot of questions about food timing and food order and all of those things. So we're going to jump a little bit into that. And I just want to say again, though, you shouldn't worry about those things. This is like the cherry on the top. Like, the nitty gritty. Once you've like mastered your fuel, then you can start looking at some of these other things for like ideal optimization. But it's not where you should start. Like, don't overcomplicate it.
No, we really do just want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
You need to be eating proteins, you need to be eating carbs, and you need to be eating fats. And everybody needs those in different proportions. And, you know, that's kind of what our bread and butter is. See what I did there? Is figuring that out for you. So if you are on a macro plan and you're curious about it, you can message us here, go to our website, macromavens.life, click the hop on board button. Somebody will reach out to you. If you're curious about, like Emmy said, this is like really the nitty gritty. So like if your nutrition is all over the map, like you can absolutely take some of the nuggets that we're going to give you today and apply them immediately. But if you are somebody who is on a macro plan and you're wanting to bump it to the next level, then the things we're going to talk about will help you to do just that.
It will. And I do want to just say real quick, because Haley mentioned needing protein, carbs, and fats. And you do, and we've done an entire live on protein, an entire live on fat, an entire live on carbohydrates. We've done lives on everything, but here's the deal. Protein, we call it queen. You need it to sustain your muscle. You need it to help your brain cognition. It is essential for our cellular structure. Carbohydrates, especially complex carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables primarily, are going to give you fuel, and you need that in the right ratio for what your lifestyle is. Fats are essential for hormone, especially for females and hormone production. When you are under eating fat, and I'm talking healthy fats, when you are under eating healthy fats, you will not have optimized hormones, especially over time. Especially your endocrine system and your sex hormones, things like estradiol, testosterone, progesterone, DHEA, they will be out of sync and you will not feel your best. And so every single macronutrient is so, so important.
Let me just tell you guys a little story.
Yes, please.
Story time.
Story time.
I have a client who, she's been a long time client of mine for over a year. And she took a pretty long break in the middle and she got super into an online fitness program, which has been fantastic. Anyway, she came back to me and she's like, hey, I signed up for this fitness program and they gave me a free nutrition readout as far as like what I should be eating. Like they broke down her macros essentially. And she sent me the macro breakdown of what they gave her. And when I
she showed it to me.
When I read it, my mouth went like this.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe it. And so what I think happened is I don't think it was a person necessarily giving her the assignment as much as it was a person inputting her information.
Just a formula.
And spitting out like just a macro plan.
We're not formulas, you guys.
No. And it was like, it seemed very haphazard. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about this client of mine. I love her. She weighs about 140 pounds. She's very, very active, like extremely active. and girlfriend can eat her calories and she burns through them because she's so active. So they gave her an assignment that was about 2,100 calories, which is a calorie deficit for her. I know that because she's been a client of mine for over a year. Her assignment was 2,100 calories. 45% of those calories were protein, which put her at, I can't quite remember, it was like 190 grams of protein. She was at like 20%, or let's see, it was 45, and then it was like 35% carbohydrates, which was like almost 200 grams of carbohydrates, and then the
like
rest,
80%,
the rest was fat, which was like
not enough.
Not enough. So 20% fat for a female is, first of all, Emmy mentioned it earlier, but men and women, we all need essential fatty acids for our body to function correctly. For women, like 30% of your daily nutrition minimum should be coming from healthy fats in order to simply support your hormone production and also your vitamin absorption. There are certain vitamins that you cannot absorb unless you have a certain amount of fat. So if somebody or a machine or the internet or whatever calculates a macro assignment for you and puts your fats below 30%, that should be a red flag to you because your body cannot sustain hormone harmony at that low of a fat intake. I understand what was happening is they were taking from the fat to give more protein. Now,
and more carbs.
The other thing that was a problem is that 200 grams of protein and I think it was something like 24 grams of fat, she would have to eat like 100% poultry, like zero fat poultry, because you can't get that much protein and with that little amount of fat. Like it literally, and so she tried it for a day. I was like, I just really think this is not sustainable, even for the short term. She's like, well, I'm going to try it for a day, see how I feel. She felt completely bloated. She really struggled to hit that protein without having to take a ton of protein powders. Because honestly, like that's what they're pumping you. They're pumping you with protein powders because you can't hit your proteins.
Which your body can't assimilate that much. You
it's
need
just
whole food.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, long story short, she was like, I just, long story short, you should not use a macro calculator.
She's like, Haley, you are the expert. I will do whatever you want.
Because
those calculators, they take, anything that you do for a short season, you will probably yield some results. But the problem is with these online calculators, including MyFitnessPal, that will give you a macro assignment based off of your goals, it's probably only looking at your gender, your age, your height, your weight, and your activity level. There is so much more that goes into that, especially how many calories are you already eating? How adapted is your metabolism already? How flexible is your metabolism already? What does your hormone harmony look like? Are you still menstruating?
Are you breastfeeding?
Are you taking any medications? Like all of those things have a really big impact on what you need as an individual. And that's why you can have two people, Haley and I, are similar in size, similar in age, similar lifestyles. Our macro plans look very different from one another. So no two people are going to need the same thing.
And it made me like real mad because for one, it was unhealthy.
It would have done a huge disservice to her had she have done that.
And she's already working on her hormones and getting her hormones balanced and doing all the things she needs to. It would have honestly set her back so far. I was like angry.
We see that. We see people that come to us with this is just another example because now we're getting on our soapbox.
Yeah. Get ready.
So I see clients that come in with all sorts of diagnoses that are like colitis or IBS or, these things that they've worked with their medical providers for some time on. And I get that most medical providers are not focusing on nutrition. They are focusing on the symptoms and they are focusing on sometimes lifestyle, and I commend those that are because it is so, so important. But what most of them are taught in school is the pharmacology side of it. And I have clients that come to me that have never been educated on the role of inflammation in their body. Never. And it is criminal.
Sit back, girl.
It is criminal because here's the thing. People are suffering and they don't need to suffer. Can nutrition fix 100% of things? No, but it sure can the large majority of it, because the second you start to understand the role of food as fuel. It is medicine. Food is either medicine or it is poison. And I know people get mad when you put food in a good or bad box, but food is good or bad. Like, it is. And so I choose to eat bad foods sometimes because I enjoy them and I can fit it in, and that's my choice. But when you really look at it, is the food fueling you and moving you towards a healthier state, or is the food poisoning you and moving you towards a state of disease? Because when people come in and they have all of these things that they struggle with and that they suffer with, and they have pain and they have bloat and they have lack of libido and they have no energy and they have terrible mood swings, and it is amazing what can start to happen when they start fueling their body and their brain consistently and start to slowly, not entirely all the time, but slowly eliminate or reduce some of those inflammatory foods and replace them with things that fuel them. And not every client chooses to do that, and that's okay. You can have progress eating the same things you do, just in a different ratio. But when they do, they feel so much better. I have clients that have suffered for years that after only months of making the shift, they are like entirely new people with energy, and they're better for their families. And like, we need to be talking about this more. It needs to be first line therapy. It needs to be first line therapy for every single disease out there. It needs to be.
Are you done? Because I thought I was telling a story, but sorry. Okay, let's jump into it. Let's talk about
timing.
Yes, let's talk about timing. Food timing. I get this question all the time about when to time the meals that you eat. And I always say to my clients, for me, and this is my preference, and I am different than Emmy and different than other coaches. There's only a few things that I actually care about when it comes to the timing of your food, especially if you are on a macro plan. As long as you are getting your macros in within your eating window that you have established for yourself, whether you're fasting or you're not fasting, that is all self-determined. But as long as you are getting in your macros for your assignment during the day, that's all I care about. Now, there are definitely things that we can talk about that will help your body to sleep better, to help you digest your food better, and all of that does have to do with the timing of your food. So I'm going to go ahead and say it before Emmy does, but if you want to be finished eating your food at least an hour, preferably more than that, preferably 2 hours before you go to bed at night. That gives your body a pretty good jump start on digestion. Yeah. That way, when you go to bed, you're not like spending a lot of energy digesting your food, and your body can really focus on rest. Another thing with timing, a lot of people ask me this. They ask me like, okay, what time should my first meal of the day be? And that's really determinant on who you are and what your lifestyle looks like. You know, Emmy and I both get up really early in the morning and we exercise first thing, and both of us exercise in a fasted state, which we can talk about why. I think that I'll just mention it real quickly, but depending on what you eat the night before, your body stores carbohydrates. In the evening, whatever carbohydrates you aren't able to burn during the day get stored as glycogen in your muscles. And so in the morning, especially in a fasted state, you should have plenty of energy within your muscles to get you through your workout. So as far as like a pre-workout drink goes, unnecessary in my personal opinion. But I also exercise first thing in the morning. I don't feel like I need to fuel myself because I've already fueled from the night before. And then the next thing about timing is protein. Like a lot of people, and myself included, like if you exercise, like you want to eat protein within a couple of hours after exercising, and it really helps your body, especially if muscle building and strength is important to you. Then making sure that you are refueling your body with proper amount of protein, carbs, and fats after an exercise session is really important.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And I'll echo everything Haley just said, because once again, it's keeping it simple, right? So first and foremost, just hitting your numbers. If you are consistently fueling your body and you're on a macro plan and you're hitting your calories and you're hitting each of your macros within plus or minus 5 every day, that consistency is going to allow us to shift those targets over time. And it's going to allow us to get that reactivation of your metabolism so that we can get you to a more metabolically flexible state, which is what we all want, right? We want to be able to have a higher caloric intake, a leaner body mass, and have flexibility within what we eat. There is a lot of information out there though, and some of it's conflicting, and that's why I think it's really easy to, go online and find all this conflicting information. But there are some basics that most studies keep coming back to. There's a study, I think it was done by Loma Linda, and it was like 50,000 participants, and it was studying the association between BMI, so body mass index, and food timing. And so it was one of the biggest studies that's ever been done. And we can link this study if it's something that you're interested in reading. I don't particularly love looking at BMI because I think there's so many factors to that, but it is one of the things in research studies that they often use just because it takes several factors into account. And so here's the findings. And I think that we should just talk about these things for a couple of minutes. Once again, like this is fluff. And so if you are not already doing the basics of eating balanced food, eating whole food, working to understand a macro ratio that works for you, like that is step number one. This is just stuff that like once you've dialed that in and you're looking at like further optimization, because we get these questions, we want to bring it up, but don't start here. So the first finding is that people that eat fewer meals per day, which goes into the whole fasting mentality, oftentimes had a lower BMI. Now, that could just be because they're eating less calories overall, but you do have that fasting window. And we're not going to go too much into the weeds here on fasting. I really believe that fasting looks different for men than it does for women. I don't think that women should have as long of fasting windows as men typically because of the impact to our hormone harmony. But they do say if you can reduce the number of meals, let's say down to 2 versus 3, that it gives you that bigger fasting window, which allows your body to clean itself out more. It's also probably collectively giving you less calories, which we're not all about calorie restriction. We want people to be appropriately fueling their body.
And that's if you're on a plan, because there are lots of studies that show, especially for women, and I can dig them up. I don't have them off. I don't know them off the top of my head, but a lot of women who do stick to a pretty strict fasting window of like a 16-8, let's say, where you're fasting for 16 hours and you're allowing yourself to eat. Oftentimes what happens is once your fasting window ends and you start allowing yourself to eat, oftentimes women will increase their calories, their overall calories within that 8-hour window, because they know that the fasting window is coming, and 16 hours is a long time to go without eating. So if you're on a macro plan and you do incorporate intermittent fasting, which I absolutely do think that it does have a place, especially if you are in a deficit and a cut, and we talk about that, it can be really helpful. However, for those who are not on a plan, it tends to almost shoot you in the foot, because oftentimes you will overindulge and overcompensate for the lack of food earlier in the day.
Yeah. Yep.
And so just beware.
Another part of that study, which I think is really interesting, and this just naturally fits with what I like. I think when a lot of people, when they're fasting, they eliminate breakfast versus a later dinner. And it actually shows that according to this study with 50,000 participants, so it's a really sizable study, those that ate breakfast actually had a lower BMI. A lot of people skip breakfast. And for me, I would rather have a more sizable breakfast and lunch and a smaller dinner if I'm doing 3 meals, just because of how I digest food and how it affects my sleep at night. But those that ate consistently in the morning breakfast, now it didn't break it down into what they were eating, because we're going to talk about that here in a little bit too, had a lower BMI. So you might want to consider, if you are not fueling yourself in the morning, first of all, ask yourself the question, do you feel cognitively sharp? Do you feel energetic?
Why don't you fuel yourself in the morning? You should ask yourself that regardless, whether you're eliminating the morning meal or if you're eliminating any meal. Like, why? What is your purpose? Like, why are you doing it? Are you experimenting? Like really, do you have a purpose for it? And if you do, great. If you don't, and you're just doing it because you read about it on the internet or somebody on Instagram said, this will help you lose 10 pounds. Like, you might reevaluate that.
Yeah, it's huge, because here's the thing. When you start your morning with some form of fuel, whatever time that is, it's going to allow your body to start utilizing that fuel for energy, and it's going to be feeding your cognitive function. It's going to be doing all of the things. Now, we're going to compare this to what we said a few minutes ago, those that are interested in fasting. In all the research that I've read, and this is not this doesn't fit naturally for most people. If you're going to fast, it's actually preferable to have your fasting window later in the day so that you're fueling your body in the morning and the afternoon, and then you maybe have a very early dinner, or if you're only doing 2 meals, maybe no dinner, and then you're having the next morning. Once again, this is the fluff. But in terms of how that impacts your sleep and your hormone production and your energy and what most people need as their highest cognitive window during the day, that's what fits, and that's what research, for the most part, is showing. Now, there's contradictive research out there too.
So you can find whatever you want to find on the internet. It is out there, let me tell you.
And then
we saw some stuff on the internet earlier that it's like
what?
You guys ever heard of perineum sunning?
Haley!
What? It's like legitimate. People are doing it.
I opened my phone.
Yeah, tell them why I bring it up.
I opened my phone, and on my Macro Mavens Instagram, the first thing that came up was this lady who she was
doing happy baby pose
in the sunshine, not wearing anything, and
but you couldn't see anything.
No. Like, she was from the back. They just talking about the benefits of getting sun in your nether regions,
on your perineum, which like we're sitting in my husband's office, and he's like over there, like fanning himself right now. He's getting hot.
So there's benefits to a lot of things, you guys.
Yeah, so you can find whatever you want on the internet. That was my point.
Haley's gonna be outside split leg in the sun.
Oh, I know. First of all, it's the dead of winter here. There is hardly any sunshine, but you are actually more likely to try that than me.
You brought that up.
Hey, I don't know. Have you guys tried it? It says that it's supposed to give you lots of energy. I think that if you try it, you should do it in the privacy of your own property where your neighbors can't see.
We don't need any proof.
Yeah, maybe it does. I don't know.
Okay.
There's lots of interesting stuff out there. Clearly, Macro Mavens follow some interesting people too.
That's for sure.
Let's talk about the order in which you should eat your food, because that actually, I feel like, is very important.
Okay, but I just want to back up for one second, because the other piece of that study that I think we talk about this with clients all the time, and once again, it depends on your lifestyle, on your needs, all of that. But if you can reduce or eliminate snacking, that is going to be huge, because if you can get the majority of your calories in your full meals, then that's going to allow your body to process, to digest, and it's going to allow your cellular structure to basically clean itself out and repair itself, because that's what's happening in those in-between fasting windows, is our cellular structure is repairing itself. So if you're a heavy snacker, maybe reevaluate. Some people really need that, and that's okay. And once again, we have tons of clients who eat all 3 meals and they snack and they hit their numbers and they have great progress. So we're just talking about like ideal scenarios, because we get these questions quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to food order.
Food order. Okay, I love this one. And actually, we have zero affiliation with this person I'm going to mention on the internet. But the Glucose Goddess.
The World Wide Web.
On the World Wide Webs. If you don't follow the Glucose Goddess on Instagram, you guys should all go out there and immediately follow her. Mm-hmm. She is a wealth of knowledge, and the graphs that she posts about glucose and how different foods affect your blood sugar, and the order in which you should eat your foods, how that affects your blood sugar is really, first of all, it's really impactful.
Yeah.
It's also, the way she does it is really digestible. It's really, really easy to understand. She makes these graphics that are super concise and to the point, and I think that her information is really fantastic. Yep. And one of the things that she talks about a lot is, and we talk about this too, is we really want to keep our blood sugar stable throughout the day. That is one of the reasons why I feel like I have such sustained energy throughout the day, is because I've learned to not jack my blood sugar up through the roof and let myself fall off that cliff where I want to go to sleep after lunch. Like, and we can talk to you about that. If you're a client of ours and you're curious, like, let us know, slip into our DMs and ask us about it. But it really does make a huge difference if you keep your blood sugar balanced all day long. For one, it will help your metabolism. It helps your energy. And I feel like it keeps like my cognition so much sharper. Yeah. And the way to do that is really simple, you guys. And the whole restaurant business here in America is like
so backwards,
so upside down. You sit down at a meal. Let's say you go to a Mexican restaurant. They put chips and salsa and beans on the table, and like that's your appetizer, or bread and butter. And honestly, like the last thing you want to eat, literally the last thing you want to eat, are the carbohydrates.
You want to eat carbohydrates. You want to eat them last in order.
Yes, and actually you want to eat complex carbohydrates should be first with your protein.
Yeah.
So I'm actually getting ahead of myself here. But the last thing you want to eat are the simple carbs, which, dessert is a simple carb, and that's in the right order. Like you eat dessert last, unless you're one of those people who eats dessert first, and sometimes that's okay if it's worth it to you. But anyway.
Yeah, it's huge. So like Haley said, once again, this is the fluff, right? Like hit your numbers. That's first and foremost, the most important thing. But in order to keep your blood sugar levels stable throughout the day, when you go to start eating, if you can start with your complex carbohydrates that have fiber in them, so your vegetables and your protein, and then move on to your fats or couple your fats with that, and then lastly have any of your simple carbohydrates, what that's going to do is you're going to be more satiated. Your body's going to be able to digest that in a much better way because it's going to have the fiber that's coming in first that's going to create this nice mesh in there. And then you're already going to have that blunt to your blood sugar so that when you do have any simple carbohydrates, that you're not going to get that spike with the subsequent crash. And so, so many people, and we talked about this last week, the mid-afternoon crash or mid-afternoon slump.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like,
do you experience the midnight?
Yeah. Oh yeah, she did a really fun reel this week on that. So anyways, if you find yourself after lunch feeling anything but no longer hungry, like really, when you're done eating, all you should feel is no longer hungry. Yeah. Like you should feel good. You should feel energized. You should feel like you can move, like all of those things. If it gets to 2 or 3 o'clock and you're like, no, chances are you probably had some form of a blood sugar crash. And if you can keep your blood sugar stable throughout the day, you're going to have that high sustained energy and that sharp cognitive function. I get the majority of my best work done earlier in the day, but I can stay sharp throughout the afternoon. And I don't always like to. I like to have some fun. But it's amazing what a difference it makes. So once again, when you're starting a meal, start with your fibrous carbohydrates, your complex carbohydrates like vegetables and your proteins and your fats, and then follow it with things like your simple carbohydrates. If you want to treat, make sure you eat some of those other things first, especially because of the satiation factor and then also the response to your blood sugar. And we've done a whole live on blood sugar and on glucose and
insulin and
insulin resistance and how that process works, and then how that turns in effect into your metabolism and fat storage. And we should pull that back up and reshare it because that makes a profound effect. So
can I share an unpopular opinion?
Yes, please.
And I don't know if it's just my opinion. I actually think it's probably a lot of people's opinion. There's a lot of people in the world who love a big old fruit smoothie in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
They love it. And here's an unpopular opinion, but it's pretty much just trashing your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Unless you do it
Sugar
right.
in a cup.
Yeah, unless you do it right. And there is a right way to do it. And the right way doesn't always taste as good as the way of, and I hate to say it because I love a good fruit bowl. I love an acai bowl. I love that. But you can do it.
That's dessert.
It
in most
is.
countries.
It's a treat. It should be thought of as a treat and not necessarily a meal. If you can add fiber, okay, so let's say that you're having a fruit smoothie that already has like some fiber in it. If you're having fruit that has peel on it or fibrous fruits. But if you can add another scoop of some kind of fiber to it, whether it's acacia fiber or maybe you do take your fiber in like a
chia seeds.
Yep, however you take your fiber. If you can add fiber to it, if you can add protein, whether that is, I hesitate to say a scoop of protein powder, but that's probably the easiest. Nobody's going to throw a chicken breast in their fruit smoothie. That's gross. But if you can add some protein to it and then some fat, some avocado, a scoop of peanut butter, almond butter, whatever that looks like for you, if you can add those 3 things to your fruit smoothie, for one, it'll power up your smoothie and you will get the benefit of having balanced blood sugar. I know so many people, and myself included, where I would have a smoothie every day and I thought that was like, I was doing my body good, or I'd go somewhere and I'd get like a fresh squeezed juice. And I thought that it was good for me. And what I didn't realize was what was happening to my blood sugar. Yeah. And I didn't even know that if I just added a few simple things, some fiber, some protein, and some fat, that all of a sudden it would up level my smoothie for one, and I would not have the crash 2 hours or 1 hour later where I was like, why am I so sluggish? Why am I so tired? Why am I so hungry? Because honestly, that's what would happen to me is I would be like starving an hour after eating that. So,
but the other thing is like, if a smoothie is important to you, yes, like find what works that has balance that you can fit in your macros, especially if you're tracking. But just know, if you do a smoothie like that and you're putting avocado and peanut butter and protein powder and fruit juices or whole fruit, like you're looking at 500 to 800 plus calories just for that drink. And you have to ask yourself, like, maybe you need those calories and that's great. But is that how you want to start your day? Or would you rather eat whole foods? And so I just think it's something that everybody needs to determine for themselves.
Yeah. So just be aware if it's worth it. If that's what you do, great. But I would just suggest that you look at the form of your smoothie and take some of these tips to maybe level it up a little bit to help you get through your day with less blood sugar impact.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay, so fibrous complex veggies with your protein and your fats, followed by any simple carbohydrates. Like, you know, it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, check out the Glucose Goddess. Her posts are so good, and she'll look at something like, let's just say eating French fries. You know, let's eat French fries first, and then let's have a hamburger, and what that does to your blood sugar versus eating the hamburger first and then the French fries, and it's pretty remarkable.
It's really cool.
what she shows.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Haley and I actually, I'm going to say this out loud because maybe we'll actually hold ourselves to it.
You're going to say something out loud.
Yes, we've talked about getting continuous glucose monitors that we wear on ourselves and doing a bunch of experimenting that we share. I don't know, would that be cool?
Well, we've talked about this for like over a year. I don't know what's happening right here. It's just like bothering me. I can see it on the screen. It's like, it's fine. It's just my... That's my hair is in despair.
Jessica, my hair is in despair.
Anyway, we talked about it a long time ago, probably a year ago. I was like, yes, we're going to do it. I already did all the research for the blood glucose monitors, and we just never bit the bullet. There's a lot of things that we talk about, but we're going to do this. Maybe for Christmas, we'll get it for each other.
Whether you mention it on here or comment after the fact, if you know what that's from, Jessica, my hair is in despair, you get a prize.
Now they're going to all go Google it. And they're all going to know.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see who gets a prize.
Oh, boy. I got to.
Okay. Next up is all food created equal? We kind of already talked about this.
Silly question. I didn't know that was one of our questions. She just made that up.
Well, it's food facts.
Oh.
And so it really comes down to, like, no, not all food is created equal. When you look at the macronutrient and the micronutrient quality of the foods that we're eating, once again, we talk about primarily sticking to whole foods, right? Foods from the ground, foods that walk around, foods from the sea, and foods from the air. If we can do that, then our body is going to use those micronutrients to help fuel us. Those also, whole foods and the foods that we just talked about, are going to be the least inflammation that we would be fueling our body with. So when we talk about inflammation, and we've talked about this a lot, we're looking at things like dairy, grains, sugar, alcohol, and seed oils. Not to say you can't have some of those things, but if you can start to minimize or eliminate those over time, you will be moving towards a better state of health, because that long-term chronic inflammation that those foods create is what ultimately allows for cellular mutation, which ultimately leads to disease. Things like IBS, things like diabetes, things like cancer. Like, most disease is elicited from chronic inflammation in your body. So why wouldn't we all want to reduce that? Because there are delicious, nutritious foods that I think, especially as we start incorporating more, we can enjoy just as much, if not more.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree.
Yeah. So that's that. Now let's talk about our process.
Let's do it. Let's talk about our Macro Mavens process. Also, just to give ourselves a little bit of a plug, if any of this, I can see a lot of people who are listening are not clients. If any of this is like exciting to you, if you are just a person who is interested in nutrition and wants to chat with us, you know, that's what we're here for. We love talking all things food, health, and nutrition. And we really feel like, what we offer as far as nutrition coaching is really next level. It's not just a macro assignment. It's so much more education. Like, what we're talking about right now is what a lot of our clients hear us saying all the time to them, you know? So anyway, just thought I'd give ourselves a little bit of a plug before we dive into our actual process.
And I think once again, keep it simple. Like first and foremost, we want to work with our clients on really getting them started in a place that's going to help get the metabolic activation that they want, depending on their goals. We have other people that come to us that are really looking to just build muscle or for performance, but the large majority are coming to us for fat loss, metabolic activation, energy, hormones, kind of all of the things. And so we're going to start there with nutrition, but then we dive into these other areas that we feel are so important for like a long-term longevity and optimization. And that's going to be things like deep restorative sleep, stress resilience, understanding the role of fiber and water, understanding movement, and then non-inflammatory eating. And so those are really our pillars that we want, whether you adopt them or not, we want to be able to educate on them. And so we get so many questions, and we've done a whole live on our process, which we can reshare.
Oh, we don't need to reshare because we're about to talk about it right now.
Sounds perfect. So let's just break it down. Like, what do we do?
Well,
what do we do?
So one of the things that I love about what we do, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier, as far as like, if you follow Instagrammers who will just give you a macro assignment, let's say, that without taking into consideration the person and the lifestyle. I think that's one thing that Macro Mavens, first and foremost, we get to know our people. So we get to know our clients. We get to know their lifestyles. We get to know their exercise history. We get to know their family. What does their life look like? And one of my favorite things is the very first week somebody joins, we have you track your regular eating. I want to see like, what does a week look like for you? You know, like how busy are you? Are you going to baseball games every single day? Are you eating out every night? Do you like to party on the weekends? Like, what is your life? Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to give an assignment that is going to flip your life upside down. Yeah. Because our number one goal for you, besides the goals that you will set for yourself, is sustainability. Yeah. If you join a program that is not sustainable, that's all it is. That's what it is. It's just a program that you join, hopefully to reach your goals. But if you can't sustain it as a lifestyle, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money. Like, I really feel like the way we do it here gives people the skills and the tools they need to create the lifestyle that they've always wanted. And it's really exciting when that fire ignites and people are like, this is changing my life, and I don't know why I didn't do this years and years ago. Yeah. And so it's really exciting. And so I think that first and foremost, we have our clients come in, we look at their regular food tracking for an entire week. We get to know who they are, what their lifestyle looks like. And then we give them an assignment based on that, an assignment that is specific to them, that is appropriate for their lifestyle and for who they are. And it's not something that comes out of a machine. It's not a calculator. It's something that we look at, and it's very specific to each individual person. I bet I don't have two clients who have the same plan.
No, not at all. And so we do that. So that first week we have our clients, let's say that you were interested, we do a free consult. You get started, you're in our app, you have a specific coach that you're working with, but you're also part of all of our groups and our challenges and everything we do as a community. That first 5 to 7 days, you're just going to be tracking all of the food and beverage that has any caloric value, because that gives us a baseline in association with your consult information. On average, how much fuel are you feeding yourself? What does your natural macro breakdown look like? And then from there, we are able to use your consult information as well as your data to create your first assignment. But it's just a first assignment because we want to be able to work with you to get that metabolic activation, whether we are looking at body recomposition and or muscle growth. Different clients have different goals. And so our goal is having you hit your numbers, and then we can consistently, slowly increase your calories and shift your macros week over week, because as your body starts to understand what's coming and what to expect, your metabolic threshold, your base metabolic rate, the amount of calories you burn at rest, it starts to match that, right? So you're increasing your calories, you're hitting your numbers, your body understands what's coming, it's using it as fuel. And people people think it's like magic.
Sorcery.
They've used that because
what kind of sorcery is this?
We can consistently get clients to fuel their body more and more while they're shedding fat. And that seems counterintuitive, right? Like, eat more and lose fat. But oftentimes our metabolisms they want that fuel. They want to burn it. They want it to be efficient. They want that same value. So then what we do is we slowly take our clients through what we call that reverse process, where we're fueling them more and more and keeping a close eye on things. Some people, the large majority of our clients, lose weight and shed fat while increasing calories. It's still a win if we're increasing calories and you're not gaining weight, but you're holding still.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute, because we have a lot of, obviously we have people from all over the place with completely different lifestyles come to us. We have a lot of people who are chronic undereaters. We see it all the time. And those people who are chronic undereaters were able to raise their calorie threshold while their metabolism adapts. Now, some people come in and they're not chronic undereaters. Maybe they're overeaters. And so they come to us with completely different needs. Their assignment is going to look completely different than somebody who is an undereater. And so sometimes we'll get clients, like I said, who are overeaters, and their assignment is going to look much different. And sometimes those people don't necessarily see quite a significant fat loss as those who are undereating. Not always, but sometimes, because sometimes if you come to us as an overeater, for instance, your threshold for the amount of calories you can take in is a little bit decreased compared to those who are eating much, much less, because we may not be able to climb you quite as high. Now, the process is the same, and oftentimes the results look very similar on the back end, because once we get you to the top of your reverse, which is what Emmy was talking about, then we do a very systematic, phased, very calculated calorie deficit. It is short term.
Unless you don't need one.
Unless you don't need one. Yeah, we have some clients who don't even need to go into a calorie deficit. They don't need to do a cut, which is awesome, you know. Emmy has a client who's a friend of ours who went through the whole reverse process. She crushed her goals and didn't even necessarily need to go through the cut. So anyway, every person is different and their program looks a little bit different. And that's why it's so important to have a coach on your side who knows that about you and knows the direction and the journey that you're on.
Yeah, and then once you've gone through that, if you need it, that short-term deficit that your coach is with you that whole time, oftentimes that's where more aggressive fat loss happens. Sometimes people respond more in the reverse, but then it's really important that you don't stop there, because we don't want you then ending in a deficit. We want to slowly and systematically reclimb your calories and shift your macros until we get you into what we would call your maintenance range, so that when you graduate, and we might go through that process several times depending on how far away from your goal you are, but so that when you graduate, you have a much higher caloric intake, you can maintain your lean body mass, and you have a more flexible metabolism to where you don't have to track with such specificity, and you can maintain your results and have like this wonderful lifestyle, which we didn't even like add in. I mean, people come to us primarily for fat loss, but then what they get that's so much more than that, outside of like confidence and feeling better in their own skin and all of those things, is the increased energy, the better sleep, the better mood, the balanced hormones. Like, those are the wins that people at the end of the day, the increased libido, the, you know, better skin, hair, nails, all the things, performance, because they're fueling their body and it's getting what it needs, and it is responding in the way we were meant to work. Like, it's just amazing what happens. And it's so easy to not know where to start. And that's why we're here. Like, we want to meet you where you're at and get you where you want to go.
Yeah. And honestly, like, our business plan is like it's not a great business plan. Like, we bring you in and we teach you all the things, and then we want you to go live your life and go do your things. Like,
we don't want you to have to use us forever.
No, a smart business plan would be like, well, let's keep these people in the program forever, for eternity. That would be the smart business plan. However, we feel like really strongly we want to give you the tools that you need to be the best person you can be, and then we want to launch you out into the world so that you can be the best human you can be for the people that you love and want to be with. And so, honestly,
it's going to reconnect. There we go. We're good.
Okay, we're back. Sorry, Facebook. Facebook just gave me a little blipsy boo, but hopefully it'll.
And we've been asked this quite a few times, and we are always accepting new clients. We work with men, we work with women. We typically don't work with anybody under the age of 18 unless it's like a special circumstance. We work with the whole spectrum of age. You know, we have clients, in their late teens up through their 80s. which is so fun. We work with athletes. We work with sedentary, a sedentary population. We work with, all sorts of different schedules. So we do meet you where you're at. And
also, we have clients who are type 1, type 2 diabetics. We see lots of clients with Hashimoto's, autoimmune disorders, polycystic ovarian disorder. I mean, is that polycystic? Did I say that right? Yeah, PCOS. SIBO, we really just
I will say though, if you're a diabetic, the question we will ask you is, are you working with a medical provider and is your blood sugar controlled? Because you got to do that before you can jump into a macro plan.
Yep.
So we're going to let you know if we're not a good fit for you. But for the large majority of people, it's amazing when our clients come and they're consistent and they do the work. The magic happens, and it's so satisfying.
So satisfying
for us,
breastfeeding mamas.
Yeah, and our entire team of coaches, you guys, what we get to do and what we get to be a part of, and then to see how that spreads in other people's families and communities, it's so incredibly satisfying. So if you're curious, if you have questions, you can reach out to us anytime. If you want a free consult, you can go to macromavens.life. You click the hop on board button. It doesn't commit you to anything. It just allows one of our coaches to reach out to you. If you have a friend or a family member in the program, make sure to put that down because we'll have their same coach reach out to you. And then we have been asked, and I hesitate saying this because then people will wait, but we do have a special coming, an end of the year, first of the year special that we're really excited about. We've been asked that quite a few times in the last few days.
Yeah, and we will announce that here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, we sure will.
But don't wait.
Don't wait. Yep. Reach out and
Facebook is not happy right now.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Reach out anytime. We love having you here. We're so grateful that you guys allow us to get to do what we're doing.
Yeah. Have a good weekend. We'll be back next time.
Bye.